the charges here may open Pandora's box in terms of the other prosecutions that he's facing around the nation. And what's staggering, really, is the sheer volume of the potential charges that he's facing. I mean, totally different jurisdictions. New York, this is Manhattan, the Manhattan District Attorney. In Washington, D.C., at the Department of Justice, Jack Smith, the special counsel, is potentially pursuing not just one, but two separate investigations, one into the January 6th insurrection and one into the classified documents that were found in Mar-a-Lago and the obstruction of justice that occurred thereafter. And then in Georgia, Fani Willis is investigating and has said that an indictment is imminent, although imminent seems to be somewhat of a malleable term, with respect to his attempt to interfere with the Georgia election counting process and the urging of the Secretary of State to find more votes.
No matter what they charged the former president with, he is the former president of the United States. Selecting a jury would be difficult, right? Very difficult to find jurors who've never heard of Donald Trump, don't have an opinion about the man. Difficult to, deal with protests and potential outrage and, the safety of everyone involved, right? There have already been some threats made against the prosecutor.
His supporters, there's a 30% of the American population that believes he can do no wrong, has done no wrong, and could never do wrong. That 30% of the population, they may end up on the jury, and that could be part of the way that the defense may have a strategy of trying to find that one juror, trying to find those two jurors who might vote to acquit. The defendants in America have rights, and Donald Trump is a defendant in America who has rights. But this is one of the first times in his life when he has to play by the rules that everyone else plays by. At this point, he is no longer going to be able to compete merely in the court of public opinion. Competing in actual court is a different thing. Spin won't matter, facts will matter, the law will matter. And just as happened between Election Day in November of 2020 and the certification of the vote on January 6, 2021, in that in-between period, every single time the president took his election denial efforts to court, in court where facts and law actually mattered, he lost.
If you were advising Trump right now, what would you say to him?
Be quiet, stop talking, and hire much better lawyers. I mean, Trump has a group of lawyers who really do not meet the challenge of this set of cases. I'll say this is somebody who operates and practices law in this area, spend many hundreds of hours a month practicing law in the white collar criminal law space. He does not have the legal team up to this task.
This is a very, very big step and a big historic moment, but it's going to be many months, maybe even approximately a year before a trial, if there ever is one, would go forward. And so we are a long way away from Donald Trump actually suffering lasting consequences for his actions. But this is one of the first times in Donald Trump's entire life, much less political career, where there are some real potential consequences for his actions. And he's no longer able to say that he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and, commit a crime and not have anyone take it seriously.
It is a very emotionally draining thing. There's a lot of anxiety and fear that can come with this, but also there's a lot of pressure that can come from a criminal indictment. It is a serious matter. I mean, it's like getting diagnosed with cancer or something like that. It is a challenging experience to go through. And so I just have to imagine that's going to have some impact on someone in the middle of a political race who is also facing criminal investigations in another state of Georgia and then multiple federal criminal investigations at the same time.
And there's no legal bar to the president of the United States being the president while incarcerated. Now, there would be some very practical hurdles, and there will be practical hurdles and practical constraints on his ability to campaign, particularly if in 2024 or by the time that 2024 is really here in full force. He's facing multiple prosecutions. There in that scenario, there could be some constraints on his ability to travel around the country, for example, to hold campaign events.
It's hard for me to believe that this won't in some way have a significant impact in the political race. I'm not a political expert, but I think it's fair to say that, as I've been questioned about this, I've also been just reading and hearing a lot from different political leaders saying it's going to transform the Republican primary or the Democratic and Republican race for the general election. I'm not an expert on that, but it goes without saying that having a major candidate for president under criminal felony indictment has to have some impact.
You can't run for president perpetually and then in between serve as president and say, well, I'm running for president, so you can't prosecute me. I'm now the president, so you can't prosecute me. And now I'm running for president again, so you can't prosecute me. If that were the case, every criminal defendant, every mob boss in America would be perpetually running for the highest office in the land. And that would be a scenario where the rule of law would be thwarted. And we can't have that scenario as a country, whether it's the mob or Donald Trump.
Yeah, it's politics. I think they're just dying to find a way to keep him from being eligible for running for re-election. I think they're looking, if they can't do that, then they'll try to make him seem or try to make him appear as unpopular as possible. It seems like they've been after him since he won his first election.
I feel relief. I don't know how it's going to end. I'm not sure it's going to end the way we want it to end, but they got Al Capone on tax evasion, so whatever it takes, I think it's a dark part of our nation's history, and I do believe that illegal and criminal acts should be prosecuted regardless of whether or not you're a sitting or a former president.
What I think is important is that if there's an abuse of power, people have to suffer a consequence. I just think it's important for everyone to know that just because you've been an elected official as high as a president does not mean you don't suffer a consequence. You can't pay off someone, hide it, and then use an attorney to hide them off. That's just an abuse of power. Attorneys already get a bad name. And so for Michael Cohen to have already done time, I do believe that Donald Trump being indicted today was the right decision for that grand jury.
It's long overdue. I think it's finally closure for a lot of people. I mean, we've been hearing about all these things that he might have, could have, maybe have done, but I'm glad somebody finally went and found hard evidence to finally put to rest these questions we've been talking about over the last couple of years. I just think it's long overdue.
Stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we walk.
Donald Trump, I think it's the best thing that can happen in the world. Yeah. Once he's gone, the world's safe.
Why do you think that?
Because he's a tyrant. He wants to be like Putin. You know, he admires guys like him. And when you admire someone, it's because you want to be like that.
It is the worst thing that has ever happened. I was so afraid. I begged Joe Biden to please save this country. I mean, anybody, just step in and please. And I feel like safer now. And I feel like, was he ever going to be brought to justice? Was it ever going to happen? You know, it has to happen.
Totally wrong. That's all I have to say.
Why is it totally wrong?
That's my opinion. So,
Why do you feel that way?
It's a political witch hunt.
What's the difference between Clinton and Paula Jones and Trump and Stormy Daniels?
Good question. Good question. He didn't get indicted.
I know. I feel like there's some hypocrisy on both sides playing, so I don't know. That's all I got.
To me, it's generally good news, but I'm not convinced that anything's going to come of it. He's probably not going to get arrested because he has enough money not to do that. And, you know, again, as much as I hate the Donald, I think that we have bigger pressing political issues than him.
Looking at the Capitol, we went and visited today, and just to know what happened there, you know, and it was all on his word and all his fault. And that's just the beginning. He can never get near government again, you know what I mean? Because this whole country, we were at the Lincoln Memorial today, and I was in tears because tyrants, and like my husband said, it's tyranny, you know, and please, we can never ever let him come back again. And yeah, I hope he's held accountable on this. This seems like something that might be weak, but hopefully this is just the beginning. You know what I mean? Hopefully he's held accountable for January 6th and for the, stealing top secret documents. I mean, come on.